Well, what up, everybody? Welcome to Master the NEC, where we talk about the National Electrical Code, again, sponsored by Electrical Code Academy, Incorporated, here in McKinney, Texas. But we teach people all over the United States. I don't do Canada, don't care much for Mexico, but we do the United States, so that's what we're talking about. And it's about the National Electrical Code, the second most important document in my life. I think we all know what the first one is. Don't read it all the time, but it is what it is. Anyway, welcome to the show. On today's PaulCAST, our audio presentation, we're going to talk about exam preparation. So let's say you're a journeyman and you're looking to be a master. Let's say you're an apprentice and you're working for somebody and you put in the time you need based on your regulations for your state that you're in. And now you're getting ready to maybe take your journeyman's exam or your master. Now, the funny thing is, I think of all these tests as stepping stones to being a master electrician. Now, some states, again, like Ohio, just has electrical contractor license, and they kind of don't have a journeyman and masters. But Texas and Virginia, in fact, in Texas, they have like 6 or 7 licensing requirements. It's crazy. From a master to residential to a wireman to a appliance electric. I mean, it's crazy. But I'm not going to say whether or not I think that's a money-generating opportunity for the state. But anyway, you have all these different licenses. And you have to prepare for the exam. There's some great exam prep courses out there. We offer one as well, which is basically a one-on-one tutoring process that I personally tutor with you. We find your weaknesses that you have on exams, whether it's the calculations or how to maneuver through the code, or maybe you just don't manage your time right. But today we just want to talk about some preparation for somebody that's preparing for a test, some of the audio stuff that we can do. Now, if we were doing the video series on that, I'd show you places in the code, what to highlight, what parts of the code to stick in, pay more attention to. But we don't really have it because this is an audio. So what I want to do in this podcast is to kind of talk to you about the things that you need to do for an exam. So let's assume you're just starting out and you're wanting to do it. So there is plenty of books out there that are trying to teach you the National Electrical Code. If you go to our website, here's my shameless plug at masterthenec.com. There's a lot of free videos on there that talk about the NEC. I believe we even have an exam prep video up there, but I will be doing one of those shortly. So make sure you subscribe by going to our YouTube page. And subscribing, just go to YouTube and look for Master the NEC, or you can get there from our website. Again, that's masterthenec.com or electricalcodeacademy.com. And of course, that's available in the .net and .orgs as well. Or you can Google us, you'll find us. So the thing about it is, how do you really prepare? Well, you need to start understanding the fundamentals. And there's nothing more important to me in the code than learning definitions. So Article 100 is definitions. So we really need to understand all those definitions, read them over. You don't need to memorize them all, but you need to understand the concepts so that when you're looking at something on an exam, you know where to go. The beauty of an electrical exam is that it is open book. There are many other tests that aren't, like, for example, real estate license exams. It's not open book. You just have to commit certain things to memory. That helps you on an electrical exam if you memorize some stuff, but you're just starting out, so I don't want to overwhelm you. So the first thing you want to do is kind of go through, here's the first thing. The first thing you should do is get your code book, National Electrical Code Book. Get the most current edition that they're testing on in your jurisdiction. And the first thing you want to do when you get that code book is you want to buy the tabs. Now, these are little tabs. They're color-coded tabs, or they might be just black and white tabs. I like the color-coded ones. You can get those from IAEI. That's the International Association of Electrical Inspectors. They have some great tabs. You can probably find them on Amazon or whatnot. I'm an Amazon junkie, so I get a lot of stuff from Amazon. But these tabs make up of the different sections and the different articles and the different specific sections that you need to help you maneuver through the code effortlessly. Now, when you're looking at a question on an exam, you're obviously going to try to dissect that question, because somewhere in the stem of that question is going to drive you to where you need to be in the National Electrical Code. It could save you a lot of time. So there are a lot of exams. So let's kind of take a step back. So get your code book. Make sure when you get your code book that you get tabs. You have to have these tabs. If you don't know what I'm talking about with tabs, email me and I'll get you more information on tabs. Get you a link to where you can get some at info@masterthenec.com. That's INFO @ and then master, MASTERTHENEC.com. And I will send you a link to where you can get them. I don't make any money on them. I'm not an affiliate. I don't sell these products. Okay, and I don't sell anything except for my educational stuff if you want to buy it. But why would you do that? Because most of the stuff I give away for free anyway, right? So it's really only my consulting stuff that people would pay for. But I like to give back to the industry. That's why I do a lot of these podcasts. A lot of people say, oh, it's Paul wanting to be about Paul. They're just stupid. They don't get it. Why would somebody do this? Do I like to hear myself talk? Well, that's what they'd like to say. But the reality is, if you learn something from it, if one person learns something, I've done my job. And that's what I try to do. And I've been doing this for now over, God, if you go back and think about back when I used to have the Electrical Guru, which was years ago, that website, I mean, it's been, God, over 15, pushing on 20 years, back at the turn when internet was just starting to get buzzy. I know it's been around for a long time, but we're talking about educational stuff. Man, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't want to age date myself, but I like to help, and I like to answer questions. I got municipalities that send me emails daily from all over the country. I got inspectors that call me. I got electricians that call me. I got engineers that call me. I've got other code-making panel members, and I sit on 2 code-making panels members. They call me, and we like to talk. It's not me talking down to them. I talk with them because we're all here together. We all have a common goal, right? And my goal is to help you pass your exam. Now, I like to think of it as a step process. So as an apprentice, you're learning, or as a journeyman, you want to achieve a master. It's all about time and the effort you put in. So get your code book, get those tabs. Now, once you get those tabs, the key thing that I want to study at this point is you really need to start looking at the front of the code book. And when you look at the front of the code book, what you're going to have in the front is called the contents. And if you look over the contents kind of breaks down the main charging statement, or what we say, of all of the different parts, it's all broken down by part. So you can kind of give you an idea where you need to be. But it also has all the articles and the chapters and everything like that. So in my extensive video, I train you how to go through the code and what you need to highlight and the things that are more important, what you don't need to worry about, which can confuse you and all that. And that's kind of how I base my exam prep type program. You also need to create what we call flashcards. Now, you can buy these flashcards. They're available online. You can buy NEC or NFPA 70 flashcards, but you can make your own. And how do you make your own? You get 3x5 index cards, and on each index card, you write down the actual chapter, like chapter 3 on one side, and then on the other side of it, when you turn it over in case you're grilling yourself, you'll put on the front chapter 3, wiring methods and materials, but you'll put on the front just chapter 3, and on the back, you're going to put that it's wiring methods and materials. So you're just quizzing yourself. And you would do this on all the chapters. You would do this on all the sections. You would do this on all of the articles. Well, you might want to do not all the sections because that would be just way too many. But to do it on all the articles, most certainly, like 210, you want to get used to when I see 210 that you know that you're dealing with branch circuits. You want to see 230, you're dealing with services. You want to see 225, you know, wow, what am I dealing with? Outside branch circuits and feeders. It's just that simple to order to create a flashcard set. Because here's the thing. In an exam, since it's open book, it's really all about the time. I mean, you're battling the time. Anybody that has enough time can find it in the code, but you run out of time. So it's about managing that time. So when you're taking an exam or you're preparing, you need to make sure that you're familiar with the articles. 240, for example. If you see 240 on a flashcard, you should know without having to turn it over, it should be overcurrent protection. That's what you should know, 240. And so what you're doing is you're training yourself to be able at an instant. Now, once you do that, then you can start breaking it down even further. For example, if I'm dealing with GFCI issues, what section within a specific article deals with the GFCI requirements? And that's the general rules. And that would be 210.8 deals with it. And you have a 210.8A, which deals with residential, and you did a 210.8B, and that deals with other than residential. So this is a process of training your mind. Don't try to do this overnight. This is a big step for you. This is a license. And once you get this license, it is, I can tell you right now, one of the biggest things. It doesn't matter any education that I've had, any engineering. Most of mine was done online anyway, and it's not electrical engineering. It's just basic engineering. Means that I didn't do the lab portion. So I had people ask me, they'll say, Paul, are you an electrical engineer? And I'm like, no, I'm not an electrical engineer. I have an engineering degree, but it's not an electrical engineering degree. I have a specialty in electrical, and that's why I didn't do the other, because I didn't have the same benefits to be able to go to school like other people had. I had to do mine online. And so when I did mine online, I couldn't choose a program that actually had a residency process. And this was back years and years ago. And so I did the basic engineering, which is engineering principles and practices, but they gave me a certain amount of credit for the fact that I was a master electrician at the time, and I had a certain amount of education outside of that. So I had to submit my education, my schooling, the hours. Let's see, what else did I? All of, and of course I was also a CMI, Certified Master. Anyway, an evaluation service looked at it, and that's what they established that, and I was able to do my online classes at the time. Today, people would call that diploma mills, I guess. But at the time, it's what I used. And so I already had an extensive knowledge as an engineer too at the city that I work for. So anyway, you don't need to know my story. But the problem was, most engineering people that go through engineering school, they don't do anything with the code. And my whole life has been dedicated to the code. I didn't care about designing systems, even though I know how to do those. I didn't care about that. All I care about is code. That's it. I know that sounds bad. All right, I care about God, family, code. How you like that? God, family, code. That's my thought process. Anyway, I have a fiduciary responsibility to God. All right, that's for my real estate people. And I am studying to do my real estate because I need a new challenge in life, right? Anyway, I'm always learning. So get your code book, get your tabs, make flashcards. Go over those flashcards, and every time you get something in the code as you go through the lessons that you say, well, God, I got to remember that. For example, what if I want to remember how to size the grounding conductor? Then I would create a tab for 250-102C. If I want to know how to size the conductors for grounding electrode conductors, then I'm going to create a tab. I'm going to ask that question, and then on the back of the index card, I'm going to put section 250. .66 for grounding electrode conductors. If I want to know how to size the equipment grounding conductors, I might put sizing equipment grounding conductors table. And on the back side, I might put table 250.122. So the ability for you to create tables are endless. For example, if I want to have a keen awareness of what the working clearances is, which are so important to safety of the electrician and those that are working on electrical equipment, I might have a tab that says working space. And on the back side, it'll say 110.26. So that's what deals with working space. So that's how you do it. So you really don't have to pay a lot of money, because you know what? I'm going to give you a little secret. The process of education is creating your own flashcards. It seems to be the more that you write stuff down, the more that you commit to it. You can read something and try to remember it, but the actual process of repetitively writing it down over and over and over again is the key to learning. Okay? That has always been my key, because I can read. I always had an issue with comprehension. Now, I never really did with the NEC. And trust me, I don't know everything in this book. I am specialized in certain areas of the book. But I can read it, and I can comprehend it, and I can pass exams on it, and I can understand it because I've done this for 30 years. But when you're first starting out, you really have to take the question, and you have to break the question down. If the question's asking about the size of an overcurrent protected device, then you know that you're dealing into 40. And those are the type of things that you need to really look key, and we do that. Now, that brings me to the next study. So we've tabbed our book out. We got 2 color highlighters, because I want you to have 2 color highlighters when you do it, especially if you're going to take our video course, because you're going to have what's called a primary and a secondary. The primary might be a highlight in yellow, and the secondary might be a secondary, which is going to be, let's say, in orange. Okay? Because when we do our training, we're going to talk to you about what our primary rules and what are secondary rules. And in many cases, we'll talk about what is a mandatory requirement and what is a permissive requirement. And I teach you a system on how to identify those different things. Anyway, so get used to this. Now, the other thing that I would create flashcards on, are all of the key definitions that are in Article 100. And it's pretty simple to do. And in our course online, I tell you which ones are the key, but you really don't even need that to take that course. What you need to do is simply get your cheap index cards. You can get a stack of them for hardly nothing and a good pen. And you really just do a definition for each one. Now, by writing down the name on the one side and actually writing the definition on the other side forces your memory to try to remember that definition. And definitions are key. You have to understand those things. All right. So that's a process. Now, once you do that, the next thing to remember during exam or when you're looking at questions, and we're going to talk about question resources here in a minute. When you start doing this and you have everything tabbed, you have everything ready, remember you have what's called an index. And an index is where we can pull out questions that are on exam or during your prep exams or your prep online courses that you're going to take or some of those prep practice tests that you can get online. You're going to try to dissect in that question any of those words that you simply might be able to go to the index. And if you go to the index, you can look for those key words in an index, and it might lead you to where you need to be into the code. And so that's what we do. So you need to get familiar with the index of the back of the book. So tab your book, make those flashcards, learn those sections, learn those articles, learn those key definitions, learn some of those specialty sections in our code, like the grounding and bonding, or the other aspects of it. And then create little flashcards, for example, if you're heavily into residential, especially for a journeyman exam, so that you know the different aspects of 210.52, which is receptacle placement, spacing, all those type of goodies. Again, make any number of flashcards, and that's really the key to learning. It's not about how quick you can learn it. It's the dedication you put into learning it. So create these flashcards, grill yourself with these flashcards constantly, and every time you study, create new flashcards. Every time you study. So then the other thing that you do is go to these indexes when you're doing the online. So online tests. If you go to a search engine, any search engine, and type in National Electrical Code exam questions or test questions for the NEC, you're going to see tons of free ones online. Now, there's a caveat here. Depending on what cycle you're in, they might not be up to date. But they're still good questions because they make you hunt through the NEC. And that's the secret. All right, look, I can't take the place of somebody taking a 2-year, 3-year, or 4-year apprenticeship program to learn the different principles and practices and terminologies. We're going to assume that you have some of that training because most of the licensing processes in these states require prerequisite training. It means you have to have had a certain number of hours of training. So we're going to assume that. Then the only exception to that rule is if you're taking an electrical inspector exam. Then you need to follow these processes and take your time and learn these concepts, but you might not have any experience with your hands actually on it, really. But you're not really an electrician. So it takes you a little longer to achieve that. But if you're an electrician preparing for a journeyman or master's, then it's going to be assumed that you have some skills that you've been using for quite an amount of time. So you're learning terminologies, you're tabbing your book out for your exam, you're using the index when you look at a question and you're dissecting the key words. If the question is about overcurrent devices, then you need to find what the question is asking, and you know that it's dealing with overcurrent devices. So you can go to the index and look under overcurrent devices, overcurrent protection devices, and then you can scope it really quickly and try to find something that might be about the identifying factor of that question. Also, I'm going to teach you a process called 3-wave. And this is not unique to me. This is always done. When you're taking an exam, or when you're taking online questions, or you're doing any exam prep question online test, you go through it immediately, and you answer the questions that you know without a doubt. Ones that you don't even have to crack the book open to look at because you just have that experience. Now remember, those questions are ones that you know without a doubt. And go with your first instinct. Now, if I hit a question that stops me, and I don't want to spend more than about a minute to a minute and a half on a question, because if I get to that question and I have to think, and I'm like, okay, I'm not sure. Go on and pick the answer you think it is. By process of elimination, remove the one that you just flat out know that that's just crazy. That's not it. But when you make that selection, here's my process. If it takes you more than a minute to answer that question, you need to go on and answer the question before you get to the 1.5 minute mark. And then there's a feature in the test taking software that allows you to mark that question so that you can look at it later. So go on and mark it. Make sure you choose it because you don't want to leave a question blank, and then move on to the next question. And then you get to the next question. It might be an easy one, just go on and answer it and move on to the next one. See, what you're doing is building up some time, because in a test, you've got a certain amount of time per question. It's just simply a simple case where you have the number of questions divided by, or the number of time divided by the number of questions, going to tell you what you had to spend on each question. So what you're trying to do is, if I have an average of 2 minutes per question and I answer a question in 2 seconds, then I have just bought myself some built-in time that I can spend on those calculation questions, or those questions that are going to cause me to have to think and look up through the code a little, because they're going to have a certain amount of questions that you're just going to know right off the top of your head. Okay. What size grounding electrode conductor to a ground rod? Well, or what is the maximum, the minimum, there you go. What is the minimum allowed, grounding electrode conductor to a ground rod? I'm just throwing a question out there. Well, minimally, it's 6 AWG copper or 4 aluminum, but it could be larger. So learn to understand the question. That's probably not on your test, but that's kind of something you'd get. So in the process, I would know that question is about grounding electrode conductors, and more specifically about ground rods. So I would go to the index, unless I already knew that I'm dealing in the applications for 250.66, which is the sizing of the grounding electrode conductor. And then A, obviously, is dealing with ground rods, pipes, and what have you. So unless you know that, you will know that once you start doing these flashcards, once you start tabbing everything and stuff like that. Okay. So don't sweat that part of it. Okay. In fact, there is a tab for table 250.66 that says grounding electrode conductor. So that allows you to go right there, and that should help you out. That's the importance of tabs. Okay. So the first wave, answer what you know. And as you're going, then you want to mark the ones that that take you longer than a minute. You got to answer them before you get to the 1.5 minute mark, but mark them for review later. And any math question you get, just simply skip it unless you just know the answer. It's a very simple math question. Skip it, but you want to mark it. And if you want to choose an answer, that's fine, because you don't want to leave anything blank, but make sure you mark it. So if you're just going to go through the first wave, you're going to answer what you know in less than a minute. Anything that's a minute or more, you want to, but not more than 1.5 minutes, you want to mark it and then answer it. And then any of the math questions, you could simply pick one randomly and then just mark to skip it. Or you can just mark to mark it for later and just move on to the next question. So that's your first wave. So go through all of the questions. Now you're going to come back to the ones that you've marked. And you're going to spend a little more time on those. And you're not going to spend more than 2 minutes on those. So if you've done that, it's starting to get past the 1.5 minute to 2 minute mark. Then you're going to make sure your answer and then mark it again and go to the next one. And then you're going to go through that whole wave, and you're still going to skip your math ones unless you know it. But you're still going to leave them marked. You just skip them. Now, once you go through the second wave, the third wave is where you're going to try to answer all those questions that it took you more than 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. And then when you get to the math ones, you're going to have to stop on the math one. But when you get to that math one, if the math one takes you more than 2 minutes, mark it and go on to the next one. But you do need to pick one. So what you're doing is, it's really a 3-wave process, but I guess that sounds like it's more than 3 waves. So go through it first, answer what you know. Go through the second one, spend more time on the ones that were a little over 1.5 minutes that took you in the first wave, and then answer the math that you already know. But once you get through that wave, then the third wave is really where you're going to pick up all those loose ends and then work on the math. Now, in a lot of the exams in some of the states now, they're doing what's called a 2-part test, which means the first one is basic code lookup. It's just purely code. And the second part is math. Well, don't sweat it, because if you happen to fail the calculation portion, then you can take that separately once you pass the other. Yeah, it's going to take you a little longer, but don't sweat it. Don't stress it. But to me, it's easier because I get more time to devote just to the calculations, and it doesn't slow me down. And I can use that same wave process when it comes to the calculations. Answer the ones I know within a minute. Ones that take a minute and a half, answer it and mark it. And then the ones that are going to take longer, do it in the third wave. That type of thing. Or however you want to develop your wave process, because I don't want to, I didn't create the wave process. It's been done and I probably goofed it all up for you. But you see my point. Take it in waves. Don't stress it out. All right, so when you go online, again, using those resources, use that same approach in that when you're doing the online quizzes. Now, there are tons of them that are online. In fact, I will put some of those resources in my YouTube for this audio lesson. I will actually put some of them in there that you can use, so that you just go to my YouTube channel and listen to this, and you'll see in the description, I will actually add some of the links to some of the good online test-taking stuff that'll help you out. Anyway, that was a little longer than I wanted to be, but this is kind of just a prep primer for how you prepare for exams. Make sure you get that code book. Make sure you get the 2-color highlights to highlight key things and then secondary things. Make sure you get those tabs. Make sure you study that contents. Make sure you get those index cards and create flashcards for every little key thing in here, from the articles to important sections, to important chapters, or all the chapters, and those type of things. Constantly create those index cards, and you go through those index cards. So spend at least an hour a day studying, and at the end of your hour session, make sure that you go through your index cards for about 10 to 20 minutes, and then stop. Don't overload yourself. And do this each day. You're going to be surprised that you start getting real snappy. In other words, at 210.52, you'll know that deals with dwelling unit outlet applications and locations. You'll know that 210.12 deals with AFCI applications. You'll know that 210.8 deals with GFCI, because you're going to have a little index card for that. You know that 240 deals with overcurrent protected devices. You're going to know that 230 deals with services. I mean, you're just going to start snapping through the code. How would this help you? This helps you during your test taking, because you look at something and you know immediately what article to go to. Or it might even tell you which section to go to. If the question's about GFCI in a location, then you immediately know that, well, that's 210. And I also know that it's going down to its basic form. It's in 210.8. Now, if I want to do a flashcard on residential applications versus other than residential, then I would do one that's 210.8A for residential and one that's 210.8B for other than residential, or other than dwelling applications. So you see what I'm saying? That's what I'm doing. So again, it's a process. It's not difficult. The exam is simply testing you on the maneuverability and basic calculation applications. Ohm's law, Watt's law, basic calculations for all the things that they have to give you on the exam. It is not complicated. You just have to know the process. For other exam prep courses, visit our website, masterthenec.com. Visit our YouTube page by going there and looking for Master the NEC. Go to our Twitter account, which is @MasterTheNEC. Go to our Facebook page and search for @MasterTheNEC, or just type in there Master the NEC. Connect with us, subscribe to us. Watch the videos, dude. I'm sexy. You got to watch those videos, man. I ain't lying. I lost 65 pounds. I'm a sexy man. Not really, but you know what I mean. So anyway, thank y'all. God bless. Hopefully I have a wonderful new year, and hopefully this will help you. But this is just a primer. If you want to get our full exam prep video, look for it to come out shortly. Again, it won't cost you a dime. But if you really want intensive exam prep, we do offer those programs coming here in 2018, where we actually do one-on-one tutoring sessions where I have the connection software. You don't have to do anything. You just have to have a computer, and we'll connect, and I'll connect you to my code book, and I will show you what to highlight, what not to highlight, what things are important, what's not important, what to cross out, and we will do a question and answer session, and I will actually interact with you on a live exam so that I can show you how to dissect these questions. Because you know what? Becoming an electrician was the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. Other than my child and my wife and my family and my dedication to what I do, becoming a master electrician, look, that was the most, whether or not, it was the most single greatest achievement that I ever did in my life. And I'm so proud that I joined a fraternity of master electricians throughout the country. I love it. I love other electricians, and I've dedicated my life, and I will do this until the day I die. So God bless everybody. Take care. And hopefully you got something out of this. I know I rambled on a lot, but you know what? Hey, that's why we call it a PaulCAST. There's no formality to it, and you didn't pay for it. That's the beauty of it. God bless. Until next time, stay safe and pass that exam, people. You're going to love it. Welcome to the fraternity.